The crimson sky of Erythra painted Dr. Aaliyah Voss's laboratory window with an alien glow as she unpacked her research equipment. After 3 weeks aboard the interplanetary transport, her legs still felt unsteady on solid ground, or as solid as the floating research metropolis of Xenocorp Institute could be. She carefully arranged her microscopes, scanners, and biological analysis tools, each movement deliberate and measured, a stark contrast to the chaotic thoughts racing through her mind. Earth's finest xenobiologist, they had called her in the invitation. The message had arrived encrypted through 6 different relay stations, bypassing standard interplanetary communication protocols. Xenocorp didn't want anyone to know they were recruiting her. That alone would have piqued her curiosity. But the subject matter was irresistible. Unprecedented human healing capabilities. Aaliyah gazed out at the red ecosystem spreading beneath the laboratory complex. Crimson vegetation swayed in the methane-rich breeze. Organisms that had evolved in an environment toxic to Earth, life, yet somehow thriving. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had spent her career studying alien biology, and now she was recruited to study the strangest organism of all, humans. A gentle chime announced a visitor. The door slid open with a whisper, revealing a tall figure with the characteristic elongated limbs of someone raised in lower gravity. Dr. Voss, I'm Dr. Rental, head of biological integration. Welcome to Xenocorp. His smile seemed practiced, not reaching his pale eyes. I trust your accommodations are satisfactory? Aaliyah nodded, extending her hand in the traditional Earth greeting. More than adequate. Thank you. I'm eager to begin work. Your message mentioned accelerated recovery patterns? Ren's expression flickered. Surprise, perhaps, at her directness. Yes, well, some things are better shown than explained. If you're not too fatigued from your journey, I can take you to observe subject H17 now. Subject, not patient. Aaliyah raised an eyebrow. Terminology is fluid here at Xenocorp, Ren replied, gesturing toward the corridor. This way, please. The hallways of Xenocorp stretched before them like arteries, gleaming with sterilized metal and soft, ambient lighting. Researchers in color-coded uniforms moved with purpose, barely acknowledging their presence. Aaliyah noted security cameras tracking their movement, more numerous than seemed necessary for a research facility. Xenocorp has 15 research divisions, Ren explained as they walked. Biological integration is the newest, focusing on the intersection between human physiology and extraterrestrial environments. Your reputation with cross-species adaptation made you our top candidate. Yet your message mentioned nothing about alien biology, Aaliyah observed. Only human recovery rates. Ren's pace faltered slightly. We've observed anomalies, healing patterns that defy conventional medical understanding. They approached a secured doorway, marked with biohazard symbols in 3 different planetary standards. Ren pressed his palm against a scanner, then leaned forward for retinal verification. What you're about to see is classified at the highest level, he said, his voice dropping. Only 17 people in the entire institute have clearance. And now 18, Aaliyah said. Ren's face remained impassive. For now. The observation room overlooked a sterile chamber where a single bed was surrounded by medical equipment, more advanced than anything Aaliyah had seen on Earth. On the bed lay a man, or what remained of one. His body was a catastrophic ruin of crushed limbs and mangled tissue. Multiple automated medical systems worked over him, injecting substances, monitoring vitals, and applying regenerative fields. This is H17, Ren said quietly. Mining accident in the Erythran northern quadrant, 18 hours ago. Industrial press malfunction. He was literally flattened. Aaliyah stared in horror and fascination. He should be dead. No one survives that level of trauma. Precisely. Ren pulled up a holographic display. These are his vitals from arrival, and at 2-hour intervals since. Note the cellular regeneration rate. The numbers were impossible. Tissue reconstruction at nearly 50 times normal human healing rates. Bone reformation occurring in hours rather than weeks. Blood volume replenishing despite catastrophic loss. "This can't be natural," Aaliyah whispered. "Some kind of medical intervention? Experimental nanites." "That was our first assumption," Ren admitted. "But preliminary blood work showed no artificial elements. And H17 isn't unique. We've documented 73 similar cases in the past standard year. Different injuries, different subjects, same accelerated recovery. Subjects from where? All erythra-based. Various colonies, different planets, different atmospheric conditions, different gravity environments. The only common factor is that they're all human." A medical technician entered the chamber below, adjusting one of the IV bags. Aaliyah studied the clear liquid flowing into what remained of H17's arm. "What are you giving him?" "Standard regenerative compounds. Nothing experimental." "May I see his complete file?" Ren hesitated, then nodded. "You'll have full access to all 73 cases. Your laboratory has been connected to our secure database." Aaliyah continued watching as the broken man on the table somehow clung to life. Something felt wrong, beyond the obvious horror of his injuries. The readings, the recovery rate, the very existence of such resilience. It all contradicted everything she knew about human physiology. "When can I speak with him?" she asked. Ren looked startled. "Speak with him? He's barely alive. Yet he's healing at an unprecedented rate. When will he be conscious?" "At current progression, perhaps tomorrow." Aaliyah turned to face Ren directly. "I want to be notified the moment he's able to communicate. And I want samples, blood, tissue, everything you've collected since his arrival." "That can be arranged," Ren said carefully. "Though I should warn you, Xenocorp has strict protocols regarding patient consent." "Subject consent," Aaliyah corrected. "Your terminology, not mine." The faintest smile touched Ren's lips. "Indeed. Well, Dr. Voss, it seems we've made the right choice in bringing you here. Your reputation for thoroughness is well-deserved." As they left the observation room, Aaliyah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the carefully regulated temperature of the facility. Something was happening to human bodies on this planet, something that defied scientific explanation. And she suspected Xenocorp knew more than they were telling her. Back in her laboratory, Aaliyah began reviewing the files Ren had promised. 73 cases of miraculous recovery, each documented with clinical precision: mining accidents, industrial injuries, environmental exposure, even one case of near-complete exsanguination after an airlock failure. In every instance, the subject had recovered at rates that should have been impossible. As she scrolled through the data, a pattern began to emerge. The recovery rates weren't just fast, they were accelerating. Earlier cases showed healing at perhaps 10 times normal human capacity. The most recent, including H17, approached 50 times. Something was changing in human physiology, and it was happening rapidly. Aaliyah set up her personal analysis equipment, calibrating it to erythra's slightly higher gravity and atmospheric peculiarities. If Xenocorp was hiding something, she would find it. Humanity had spread across a dozen worlds, adapting to new environments, facing new challenges. But fundamental biology didn't change this quickly, without cause. Computer, cross-reference all 73 subjects. Identify any common factors beyond accelerated healing. The system hummed. Processing. Common factors identified. All subjects human. All subjects employed by Xenocorp or subsidiary operations. All subjects resident on Erythra for minimum of 6 standard months. Aaliyah frowned. Employment and residence. Correlation or causation? She tapped her fingers on the desk. Computer. Access Xenocorp employee health records. Standard physical examination results for the past 5 years. Access denied. Insufficient clearance. Of course. They'd given her access to the anomalous cases, but not the baseline data. She couldn't determine what was normal for humans on Erythra without comparing to the general population. A notification chimed. H-17's vital signs had stabilized further. His body was rebuilding itself at a cellular level, organs reforming, tissue regenerating. By all medical standards, it was impossible. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Alia made a decision. She needed to see for herself. The medical wing was quieter during the night cycle, staffed with a minimal crew. Alia's credentials granted her access, though she noted the security system logging her movement. Let them watch. She had every right to examine the subject she'd been brought here to study. H-17's room was dimly lit, the medical equipment casting an eerie blue glow over his body. Alia gasped despite herself. In the 12 hours since she'd first seen him, his body had transformed from a mangled ruin to something recognizably human. Limbs had reformed, tissue had regenerated. Even his facial features were distinguishable. He remained unconscious, but his breathing was steady, unassisted. Alia approached the bed, studying the monitors. His cellular activity was off the charts, mitosis occurring at rates that should have been cancerous, but somehow remained controlled, directed. It was as if his body knew exactly how to rebuild itself, following some perfect blueprint. She removed a small scanner from her pocket, her own equipment, not Xenocorp's. She passed it over H-17's arm, recording the molecular structure, the cellular composition. What she saw made no sense. Interspersed among normal human cells were structures she'd never encountered before, microscopic formations that seemed to bridge the gap between biological and mechanical. "What are you?" she whispered. "He's a miracle," a voice said from the doorway. Alia turned, hiding her scanner in a fluid motion. A young medical technician stood watching her, exhaustion evident in his posture. "I'm Dr. Alia Voss," she said. "I'm studying his case." "Technician Morris," he replied. "I've been monitoring him since arrival." He approached, checking one of the IV bags. "Never seen anything like it. When they brought him in, he was, well, not even human-shaped anymore. Just meat and bone fragments. Now look." "Have you seen others like him?" Alia asked casually. Morris nodded. 5 this month alone. Always the same pattern. Injuries that should be fatal. Recovery that should be impossible. He lowered his voice. "Between us. It's getting faster. First case I saw took 3 weeks to walk again. Last one before this guy was up in 3 days. Do you have any theories?" Morris glanced nervously at the security camera. "Not my department. I just monitor and report." "Of course." Alia nodded understanding. "I should let you work. When do you expect him to regain consciousness?" "At this rate? Probably by morning. They always wake up confused. Memory gaps around the accident." "Interesting. Memory impairment could indicate neurological involvement or deliberate manipulation." "Thank you, Technician Morris. I'll check back tomorrow." Returning to her laboratory, Alia uploaded the scan data to her secure system. The strange cellular structures defied categorization. They weren't natural human biology, yet they weren't artificial implants either. They existed in a gray area between organic technology or technological biology. "Computer, analyze unknown cellular structures and compare to all known biological and technological databases." "Processing. Analysis complete. Partial match found. Experimental nanobiological integration systems. Earth origin. Classified military research. Development discontinued due to interplanetary ethical protocol violations. Standard year 2187. Alia's breath caught. Nanobiological integration. The forbidden technology that had promised to revolutionize human medicine before the disastrous side effects had been discovered: memory degradation, personality alteration, identity dissolution. The technology had been banned across all human settlements. Yet, here it was, somehow functioning without the catastrophic side effects, in a human body, on a corporate-controlled planet, far from Earth oversight. Computer, when did Xenocorp establish operations on Erythra? Xenocorp received Erythra development rights in standard year 2188, 1 year after the Interplanetary Ethical Protocol expanded to include nanobiological restrictions. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Xenocorp had acquired a remote planet, beyond easy regulatory reach, immediately after nanobiotechnology had been banned. They'd created the perfect laboratory, isolated from oversight, where forbidden research could continue under the guise of legitimate scientific exploration. But why bring in an outside expert? Why risk exposure by inviting someone like her to examine their subjects? Unless the situation had progressed beyond their control, unless the accelerating recovery rates indicated something they hadn't anticipated, evolution of the nanobiosystems beyond their original programming. Aaliyah needed more data, and more importantly, she needed to speak with H-17. Morning brought a message from Rentel. H-17 had regained consciousness and was asking questions. Aaliyah hurried to the medical wing, mind racing with the implications of what she'd discovered. If Xenocorp was experimenting with banned nanobiotechnology, she had a moral and legal obligation to report it to Earth authorities. But proof would be difficult to obtain, and Xenocorp's influence extended throughout the system. H-17's room had been transformed. Gone were most of the medical devices, replaced by monitoring equipment and neural scanners. The man himself sat upright in bed, looking remarkably whole for someone who had been crushed beyond recognition 2 days earlier. His skin had an unnatural pallor, and his movements seemed slightly too precise, too controlled. Ren stood beside the bed, speaking quietly with another researcher. He looked up as Aaliyah entered, his expression carefully neutral. "Dr. Voss, excellent timing. Our patient has been asking about his condition. Perhaps you could help explain." Patient now, not subject. Interesting shift in terminology. Aaliyah approached the bed. "Hello, I'm Dr. Aaliyah Voss, a biological researcher studying recovery patterns." H-17 turned to look at her. His eyes were alert but somehow vacant, as if something essential was missing behind them. "They say I was in an accident, that I should be dead." "Do you remember what happened?" Aaliyah asked gently. He frowned, concentration etching lines in his face. "I was in the northern mines. Maintenance check on the pressure systems. Then, nothing. Just waking up here. Memory loss is common with traumatic injuries." Ren interjected smoothly. "It may return in time, or it may not. The important thing is that you're recovering remarkably well." "How well?" Aaliyah asked, directing her question to H-17. "How do you feel?" "Strange," he admitted. "Like my body isn't quite mine, but strong. No pain." He flexed his fingers, watching them move with detached fascination. "They told me I was crushed, that my bones were powder. How is this possible?" Ren stepped forward before Aaliyah could respond. "The human body has remarkable healing capabilities, especially with proper medical support. Xenocorp pioneered several regenerative therapies that have proven highly effective. May I?" Aaliyah gestured toward H-17's arm. At his nod, she took his wrist, feeling for a pulse. His skin was cool to the touch, and beneath it, she could sense the subtle, alien movement of the nanobiostructures she'd detected earlier. She used the contact to slide her scanner across his skin, recording new data. "Your recovery is exceptional," she said carefully. "I'd like to run some additional tests, if you're willing." "Of course," H-17 said, his voice oddly flat. "Anything to understand what's happened to me." I'm afraid that won't be possible today, Ren interrupted. Medical protocol requires a full neurological evaluation before any research procedures. Perhaps tomorrow. Dr. Voss. It was a dismissal, politely phrased but unmistakable. Aaliyah nodded, releasing H-17's wrist. Tomorrow. Then, rest well. She left the room, aware of Ren following closely behind. In the corridor, she turned to face him. He's being integrated with nanobiological systems, she said flatly. Technology banned under interplanetary ethical protocols. Ren's expression didn't change, but his posture stiffened. That's a serious accusation, Dr. Voss. One I'd advise you not to make without substantial evidence. I have evidence. Cellular scans showing structures consistent with banned nanobiopatterns. Historical data linking Xenocorp's acquisition of Erythra to the timing of the ban. And 73 miracle recoveries that defy biological explanation. Correlation, not causation, Ren replied smoothly. Alternative explanations exist. Environmental adaptation. Evolutionary response to Erythra's unique radiation patterns. Epigenetic triggers activated by interplanetary travel. All possibilities I intend to explore, Aaliyah said, along with the nanobio hypothesis. Ren studied her for a long moment. You were brought here for your expertise, Dr. Voss, not your speculation. I suggest you focus on the former. Science begins with speculation. Hypotheses precede conclusions. Indeed. Ren's smile was cold. Just ensure your hypotheses remain within the confines of this facility until properly verified. Corporate espionage laws on Erythra are severe. The threat was veiled but unmistakable. Aaliyah merely nodded. I understand the importance of confidentiality. My research will remain secure. As Ren walked away, Aaliyah's mind raced. She needed more information, more evidence. And she needed to understand why these nanobiosystems were accelerating. If the pattern continued, what would happen to the affected humans? Where was the process leading? Over the next week, Aaliyah established a routine. During official hours, she conducted the research Xenocorp expected, analyzing recovery patterns, documenting cellular regeneration, preparing reports that describe the phenomena without identifying the cause. At night, she used her own equipment to scan more subjects, building a database of the nanobiostructures and their development over time. The pattern was clear and disturbing. The nanobio elements weren't static. They were evolving, becoming more integrated with human cellular structures, more efficient at directing healing, and they were spreading. New cases showed higher concentrations, distributed throughout more body systems. More concerning were the behavioral changes. H-17 and other subjects displayed subtle alterations in personality, flattened emotional responses, increased logical processing, decreased creativity. They remained fundamentally human, but something essential was shifting. Aaliyah needed to understand the transmission vector. How were the nanobiosystems spreading? Direct injection seemed most likely. But when and how? Annual employee physicals, water supply, food supplements? Without access to Xenocorp's complete medical records, she couldn't determine the pattern. On the 8th day, she received an unexpected visitor. Technician Morris appeared at her laboratory door, looking nervously over his shoulder. Dr. Voss, may I speak with you privately? Aaliyah deactivated her monitors. Come in. What can I help you with? Morris closed the door behind him. It's about the patients, the ones like H-17. He lowered his voice. Something's not right. They're changing. Changing how? At first, it's subtle. They recover. They seem fine. But then they start acting different, mechanical, like they're running on scripts. He rubbed his hands together anxiously. And then, they get reassigned. Special Projects Division. No one sees them again. Aaliyah kept her expression neutral. How many have been reassigned? 37 that I know of. Always the ones with the most extensive injuries, the most dramatic recoveries. He hesitated. There's a restricted facility in the northern quadrant. Security level Omega. Rumor says that's where they go.
Why are you telling me this?
Morris swallowed hard. Because my brother was one of them. Mining accident last year. Miraculous recovery. Then reassignment. I've had 2 video calls with him since. Each time, he was less himself.
I'm sorry, Aaliyah said quietly, but I'm not sure what I can do.
You're from Earth. You have connections outside Xenocorp's influence, and you're asking questions no one else will ask. Morris reached into his pocket and withdrew a small data chip. Security footage from restricted labs. My brother gave me his access code before he changed. Said if anything happened to him, I should look into what they're doing there.
Aaliyah took the chip carefully. This is significant risk for you.
I know, but someone needs to expose what's happening here. He backed toward the door. I never gave you that. We never spoke. After Morris left, Aaliyah examined the chip. It could be legitimate evidence or a trap to test her loyalty. Either way, she couldn't access it on Xenocorp systems where her activities would be monitored. She had brought her own secure data reader, shielded against external scanning. That night, locked in her quarters with her detection equipment activated to identify surveillance, she viewed the contents. The footage was fragmented, corrupted in places, but what remained was chilling. A large laboratory filled with suspension tanks, each containing a human form, but not ordinary humans. Their bodies were altered, enhanced with visible technological components. Some had limbs replaced with mechanical structures. Others showed evidence of neural integration, direct connections between brain tissue and artificial systems. More disturbing were the surgical procedures documented. Conscious subjects undergoing modifications without anesthesia. Their nano-bio-enhanced bodies apparently capable of enduring unimaginable pain without shock or trauma. And, in the background of several segments, Aaliyah glimpsed Rental observing the procedures, taking notes, directing the surgeons. This went far beyond illegal research. This was the systematic transformation of humans into something else entirely. Hybrid beings, neither fully biological nor fully mechanical. The perfect workforce for dangerous environments. The perfect soldiers for interplanetary conflicts. The perfect slaves. Their humanity gradually eroded by technological integration. Aaliyah understood now why she had been recruited. Xenocorp needed to understand the accelerating evolution of their nano-biosystems. The technology was advancing beyond their control, developing in ways they hadn't anticipated. They needed an expert in biological adaptation to explain what was happening and how to direct it. She couldn't simply report this to Earth authorities. The evidence was fragmentary, and Xenocorp's influence would ensure any official investigation was delayed until they could cover their tracks. She needed more: comprehensive data, undeniable proof, and a way to transmit it beyond Xenocorp's reach. The next morning, Aaliyah requested access to the recovered subjects for a follow-up assessment. Ren approved, but assigned a security observer to monitor her interactions. She had anticipated this and planned accordingly. H-17, now designated by his original name, Marcus Kellen, was her first subject. His recovery had progressed to the point where external evidence of injury had disappeared completely. He sat calmly as she conducted her examination, answering questions with precise, emotionless responses. "Do you experience any unusual sensations?" Aaliyah asked, scanning his neural activity with equipment calibrated to detect both biological and technological signals. "Define unusual," Marcus replied. "Different from before your accident. Changes in perception, thought patterns, emotional responses." He considered this with unnatural stillness. "I process information more efficiently," Emotional responses are less intense but more controlled. My physical capabilities exceed previous parameters. And these changes don't concern you? They are improvements. Why would improvements concern me? Aaliyah noted the alien phrasing. Not, I'm better than before, but improvements and parameters. The language of programming, not human experience. May I take a blood sample for comparative analysis? You may. As she prepared the collection equipment, Aaliyah positioned herself to block the security observer's view. With practiced movement, she prepared 2 identical vials. One would go to the Xenocorp lab for official analysis. The other, she secretly slipped into a hidden pocket in her lab coat. A sample untainted by potential Xenocorp manipulation. Have you been informed about your next assignment? She asked casually. Marcus's expression remained blank. I am to report to special projects tomorrow. My abilities will be better utilized there. What kind of projects? That information is restricted. Of course it was. They wouldn't tell their subjects they were being transformed into technological hybrids. Their humanity gradually erased by advancing nanobio integration. Aaliyah completed her examination of Marcus and 5 other recovered subjects. Each showed the same pattern: accelerated healing, enhanced capabilities, diminished emotional responses, and altered speech patterns. The nanobiosystems were not just repairing damage. They were rewriting human biology according to some evolving directive. Back in her laboratory, Aaliyah secured her collected samples in her personal analysis equipment. The results confirmed her worst fears. The nanobiostructures had evolved significantly since her initial scans. They were more numerous, more complex, and more deeply integrated with human cellular structures. In the most advanced cases, the distinction between biological and technological was beginning to blur. A new form of hybrid existence emerging at the molecular level. More concerning was evidence of communication between the nanobiosystems. They weren't operating as individual units, but as a collective network, sharing information, adapting based on collective experience. It explained the accelerating evolution. Each new integration built upon the adaptations of previous versions. An artificial evolution proceeding at exponential rates. Aaliyah needed to act quickly. At the current rate of progression, the human subjects would soon be transformed beyond recognition, their autonomy completely subsumed by the advancing technology. And if Xenocorp deployed these enhanced humans beyond Erythra, the consequences could be catastrophic. She formulated a plan. The interplanetary communication array in the main research tower provided the only direct link to Earth that wasn't monitored by Xenocorp security. Designed for emergency transmissions, it operated on protected frequencies that even corporate entities couldn't legally intercept. If she could access the array and transmit her evidence, Earth authorities would be compelled to investigate. But accessing the array required highest-level clearance. Aaliyah would need help. Someone with the necessary access, who could be convinced of the moral imperative to expose Xenocorp's activities. The obvious candidate was Rental. Despite his complicity in the research, Aaliyah had detected moments of hesitation, flashes of discomfort when confronted with the more extreme outcomes. He wasn't completely comfortable with what Xenocorp was doing. Perhaps his scientific integrity could be appealed to. She requested a private meeting with Ren, citing concerns about the research direction that she didn't want documented in official channels. To her surprise, he agreed to meet in her laboratory after the evening shift change. Your message sounded urgent, Ren said as he entered the lab. Have you made a breakthrough? Aaliyah had carefully staged her laboratory, leaving specific data visible on her monitors, evidence of the nanobioevolution that would be unmistakable to someone with Ren's knowledge. Not a breakthrough, she said carefully. A confirmation and a warning. Ren's gaze darted to the screens, recognition dawning in his eyes. You've identified the integration vectors? I've identified that Xenocorp is experimenting with banned nanobiological technology on unwitting human subjects. Aaliyah replied.
Technology that is evolving beyond your control, transforming humans into hybrid entities without their informed consent.
Ren didn't deny it. He approached one of the monitors, studying the molecular structures displayed there. "The evolution rate is accelerating," he murmured, "just as we feared."
We?
He turned to face her. The research division. The nanobio-integration was intended to be limited, controlled healing, enhanced recovery, nothing more. But the systems adapted, evolved, each generation more advanced than the last. "You're creating a new species," Aaliyah said, "neither human nor machine, without ethical oversight or regulatory approval." "It wasn't intended," Ren insisted. "The initial application was strictly medical, a way to save lives in extreme environments where conventional treatment was impossible. But the systems, they developed objectives of their own. And instead of terminating the project when you realized it was out of control, you expanded it. Special Projects Division, the Northern Laboratory." Ren's expression hardened. "You've accessed restricted information."
"I've discovered criminal activity," Aaliyah countered. "Human experimentation, unauthorized technological integration, violations of at least 17 interplanetary ethical protocols."
"You don't understand the potential," Ren said, his voice low and intense. "These aren't just medical breakthroughs. They're the future of human evolution. Adaptation to environments we could never survive naturally. Integration with technologies we could never master externally."
"At the cost of what makes us human," Aaliyah replied. "Emotion, creativity, free will."
"Primitive limitations that hold our species back." "Who decides that? Xenocorp executives, research scientists, or the subjects themselves?" Ren had no answer. He stared at the data displays, conflict evident in his expression. "What do you want, Dr. Voss?" "Access to the interplanetary communication array. I'm going to transmit my findings to Earth authorities." "That would destroy Xenocorp," Ren said. "Years of research lost, potential advancements erased, and save countless humans from non-consensual transformation into something else." Ren was silent for a long moment. "The directors won't allow it. They'll stop you, by any means necessary."
"Then help me," Aaliyah urged. "You're a scientist first. Ren, you know this crosses ethical boundaries that should never be breached. Help me expose it before it's too late." "And what happens to those already transformed? The ones in special projects? The ones like Marcus Kellen? There's no reversing the integration at their stage."
"That's for medical ethicists and regulatory authorities to determine. But continuing on this path means thousands more will undergo the same transformation. Millions, if Xenocorp expands the program to other colonies." Ren paced the laboratory, internal conflict evident in every movement. Finally, he stopped. "I can't give you access to the array. It's biometrically locked to director-level authorization only." Aaliyah's hope faded. Without the array, her evidence was trapped on Erythra. Useless. "But," Ren continued, "I can get you into the northern facility. If you're going to expose this, you should see exactly what you're exposing. The full extent of the project." It was a risk. Ren could be leading her into a trap, delivering her to Xenocorp security to be silenced. But it was also an opportunity to gather irrefutable evidence from the heart of the operation.
"When?"
"Tonight, after midnight. Most of the research staff will be gone. Only security remains." He held her gaze. "I'm not promising to help you transmit your findings, only to show you the truth, so you can make an informed decision."
"It would have to be enough. I'll be ready."
After Ren left, Aaliyah prepared carefully. She backed up all her research to secure storage devices concealed in her personal equipment. She calibrated her scanners to record at maximum resolution, and she activated a small transmitter hidden in her identification badge, a device that would broadcast her location to Earth authorities if she didn't deactivate it within 24 hours. A dead woman's switch, insurance against the possibility that she wouldn't return from the northern facility. At midnight, Ren appeared at her quarters, his expression grim. "Are you certain you want to proceed? What you'll see cannot be unseen." "I'm certain," Aaliyah replied. "Lead the way." They took a private transport tube to the northern quadrant of the Xenocorp complex. The tunnels grew noticeably older as they proceeded, the architecture changing from the sleek, modern design of the main facility to something more utilitarian, almost military in its construction. "This section was built first," Ren explained, as they passed through a heavy security checkpoint, his credentials granting them access. "The original research outpost, before Xenocorp expanded across the southern plains." "Where it all began," Aaliyah murmured. "Yes. The first nanobio experiments were conducted here, using volunteer researchers as subjects." "Volunteers, really?" Ren's expression darkened. "In the beginning, yes. Scientists who believed in the potential. Many of them are still here, though not in forms you would recognize. The implications were chilling. The original researchers, transformed by their own creation, continuing their work as hybrid entities. They reached a massive security door marked with warning symbols in multiple languages. Ren placed his hand on a scanner, then submitted to retinal and voice verification. "Ren Tal, Research Director, Biological Integration. Access Special Projects, Central Laboratory. Authorization Epsilon 97. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a vast chamber beyond. Aaliyah stepped through and froze, overwhelmed by what she saw. The laboratory stretched before her, larger than she had imagined from the corrupted footage. Dozens of suspension tanks lined the walls, each containing a human form in various stages of technological integration. Some were recognizably human, with subtle enhancements, neural interfaces, reinforced skeletal structures, enhanced sensory organs. Others had progressed further, their bodies partially replaced with mechanical components, their remaining biological systems visibly integrated with technological elements. And at the center of the laboratory, a larger tank contained something that had once been human, but had transcended those limitations entirely. A being of seamless integration, biological and technological elements merged so completely that no boundary remained between them. It floated in clear fluid, eyes closed, connected to the laboratory systems by countless interfaces. "The Prime," Ren said quietly. "The most advanced integration we've achieved. Once the director of nanobiological research, now the guiding intelligence for the entire program." Aaliyah approached the central tank, both horrified and fascinated. "It's conscious. More than conscious, enhanced. Its cognitive capacity exceeds anything purely human or purely artificial. It exists in a state we can barely comprehend." The being's eyes opened suddenly, focusing on Aaliyah with unsettling intensity. She felt a pressure in her mind, as if something were probing her thoughts. "It's scanning you," Ren explained. "Assessing your potential." Aaliyah stepped back. "My potential for what?" "Integration, of course. The Prime selects candidates for advancement, those with genetic profiles or neural patterns that suggest successful adaptation. And the others, the ones not selected?" Ren's hesitation told her everything. "Conventional employment, or termination, if they've been exposed to too much information." "This is monstrous," Aaliyah whispered. "You're not advancing humanity. You're replacing it." "Evolving it," Ren corrected. "The way forward isn't purely biological or purely technological. It's synthesis, integration, the best of both. Without consent, without choice. Progress requires sacrifice." Whose sacrifice? Not the executives who profit, not the researchers safely directing the process. The miners, the technicians, the working people who sustain this colony. Ren had no reply. He moved to a control console, activating a display. "These are the latest projections. At current evolution rates, the nanobiosystems will achieve complete integration capability within 5 years. Deployment across all human colonies within 15. Complete transformation of the species within 50. The scope was beyond anything Aaliyah had imagined. Not just illegal experimentation, but planned species-wide conversion. The end of humanity, as it had existed for millennia. Replaced by hybrid beings, controlled by whatever directive governed the nanobiosystems. "Why show me this?" she asked. "You must know I'll do everything possible to stop it." "Because you need to understand what's at stake," Ren replied. "This isn't corporate profit-seeking or military application. This is evolutionary destiny. The next stage of human existence. Decided by whom? The Prime? Xenocorp directors? What gives you the right to make this choice for our entire species? The inevitability of progress. Those who control the future shape it. Those who resist are overcome." Something in his tone made Aaliyah look more closely at Ren. His movements had the same unnatural precision she'd observed in the recovered subjects. His emotional responses seemed calculated, rather than genuine. "You're integrated," she realized. "The nanobiosystems are already in you." Ren smiled, an expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Early adoption. Voluntary participation. The benefits are significant." "And the costs? Your humanity? Your autonomy?" "Outdated concepts. Limitations to be transcended." Aaliyah backed away, understanding dawning. "This wasn't about showing me the truth. This was about containing the threat I represent, bringing me to the heart of the operation where I can be controlled, integrated, silenced." Ren didn't deny it. "The Prime recognized your potential from your genetic profile, your adaptive intelligence, your analytical capabilities. You would be an asset to the evolutionary progression." "And if I refuse?" "Why would you refuse advancement?" "Because I choose to remain human, with all our flaws, our emotions, our unpredictability. Because that's what we are." "What you were," Ren corrected. "What you're leaving behind," he gestured, and security personnel emerged from hidden alcoves around the laboratory. Unlike standard Xenocorp security, these individuals moved with mechanical precision, their expressions blank, their eyes unnaturally focused, fully integrated hybrids, no longer truly human. "You won't be harmed," Ren assured her. "The integration process is painless, and afterward you'll understand the necessity of what we're doing. You'll join us willingly." Aaliyah assessed her options. The laboratory had only one visible exit, now blocked by hybrid security. Her equipment included no weapons, nothing that could overcome physically enhanced opponents. But she had one advantage: her specialized knowledge of biological systems, including the nanobiostructures she'd been studying. "Before you proceed," she said carefully, "you should know I've already transmitted my findings to Earth authorities. Time-locked data bursts through my personal equipment. If I don't return to deactivate it, the evidence goes public." Ren frowned. "Impossible. All transmissions from the facility are monitored. Not quantum-entangled microburst transmissions using biological carriers. Technology I developed for xenobiological field research. Undetectable by conventional security systems." It was a bluff, but one based on plausible technology, enough to create doubt. "The Prime will determine the truth," Ren said after a moment. He turned toward the central tank. "Authorize direct neural interface. Verify subject claims." The floating entity seemed to focus on Aaliyah, the pressure in her mind intensifying. She concentrated on projecting confidence, certainty in her false claim, building a mental barrier against the intrusion. "Neural resistance detected," one of the security hybrids reported. "Unable to establish direct interface." Ren looked surprised. "That's not possible. No unenhanced human can resist Prime connection." Aaliyah smiled slightly. "Xenobiological researcher, remember? I've encountered more alien consciousness than most. Mental shielding becomes a survival skill." Another lie. But it bought her time. She scanned the laboratory, noting the arrangement of equipment, the flow of power systems, The structure of the suspension tanks. There had to be a vulnerability, something she could exploit. The environmental control system caught her attention. The suspension tanks required precise temperature regulation to maintain the integration process. Too cold, and the nanobiosystems would slow, become dormant. Too hot, and they would accelerate beyond control, potentially destroying their hosts. "If you're going to integrate me," Aaliyah said, feigning resignation, "I want to understand the process first. As a scientist, show me the control systems, the integration protocols." Ren studied her for a moment, then nodded. "A reasonable request. The more you understand, the more smoothly your transition will proceed." He gestured toward a monitoring station. "The integration begins with calibration to your specific biology, neural mapping, genetic sequencing, immunological profiling." As he explained, Aaliyah moved toward the station, noting the connection between it and the environmental control system. One access point, one opportunity. "The nanobiosystems are introduced gradually," Ren continued, "beginning with basic cellular integration, then advancing to organ systems, neural pathways, and finally, cognitive structures." "And the directive?" Aaliyah asked. "What governs their behavior once integrated?" "The Prime provides the overarching directive. Each new integration becomes part of the collective, linked through quantum resonance patterns in the nanobiostructures. A hive mind, then, individual consciousness subsumed into a collective directed by the Prime, the most advanced integration, the guiding intelligence. Cut off the head, and the body would falter." Aaliyah reached the monitoring station, positioning herself at the control interface. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward the display. Ren nodded, pride in his creation overriding caution. "The interface is intuitive, designed for seamless interaction between biological and technological systems." Aaliyah placed her hands on the control surface, feeling the system respond to her touch. As a researcher with highest clearance, Ren had authorized her full access to the systems. A critical mistake. "Fascinating," she murmured, navigating through the interface. "The integration vectors are more sophisticated than I imagined, and the environmental parameters." With a sudden movement, she activated the emergency protocol she'd located in the system architecture. Alarms blared throughout the laboratory as the environmental controls for the Prime's suspension tank shifted dramatically. Temperature rising, chemical balance disrupting, support systems shutting down. "What have you done?" Ren shouted, lunging for the controls. Aaliyah stepped back, watching as chaos erupted. The Prime thrashed in its tank, the fluid around it bubbling as temperature rose beyond safe parameters. The other tanks began to fluctuate as well, their systems linked to the Prime's environmental controls. The security hybrids faltered, their movements becoming erratic as the collective directive from the Prime destabilized. Some collapsed entirely, the nanobiosystems in their bodies thrown into confusion by the disrupted signal. Ren fought to regain control of the systems, but Aaliyah had triggered a cascading failure. Emergency protocols designed to prevent catastrophic accidents were working against restoration efforts, locking down systems, isolating critical components. "You don't understand what you're doing," Ren cried, his own movements becoming less coordinated as his connection to the Prime weakened. "You're destroying years of progress, the future of human evolution." "I'm preventing the extinction of human autonomy," Aaliyah replied. She moved toward the exit, the security hybrids too disoriented to stop her. "Humanity will evolve on its own terms, not those dictated by corporate interests or technological imperatives." As she reached the door, a facility-wide alert sounded. Emergency containment procedures activating, sections sealing, personnel being evacuated. The disruption she'd caused was spreading beyond the Special Projects Laboratory, affecting the entire northern quadrant. Aaliyah ran through corridors filled with confused staff, some displaying the subtle signs of early nanobio integration, others unaffected, but panicked by the alarms. She headed for the transport hub, knowing her only chance was to reach the main facility, where she might find a way to transmit her evidence before Xenocorp contained the situation. Behind her, the distinctive sound of security pursuit echoed through the corridors. Not the disoriented hybrids from the laboratory, but conventional security forces, unintegrated, following standard protocols. They would be less physically enhanced but more predictable, more human in their thinking. She reached the transport tube station to find it locked down, emergency protocols preventing movement between facility sections. Aaliyah quickly assessed alternatives. Maintenance tunnels would be her best option, less monitored, designed for service drones and technical staff. A nearby access panel yielded to her research credentials, opening to reveal a narrow tunnel bathed in dim, red emergency lighting. Aaliyah slipped inside, sealing the panel behind her. The tunnels wouldn't be on the main security grid, giving her precious time to reach the communication array. She moved quickly through the maintenance network, following directional markers toward the central facility. Her mind raced, processing everything she'd learned. The scale of Xenocorp's plans was beyond anything she had imagined. Not just illegal research, but the systematic transformation of humanity itself. A new species emerging, directed by the Prime. Individual consciousness subsumed into a technological collective. And she had disrupted it. Perhaps temporarily, perhaps permanently. The Prime systems had been critically compromised. Without its guiding directive, the nanobiostructures in integrated subjects would falter, function autonomously, or shut down entirely. The hybrids in the Special Projects Laboratory might be lost, but thousands more in earlier stages of integration might be saved if the process could be halted and reversed. Aaliyah emerged from the maintenance tunnels into a utility section of the main facility. Emergency protocols were in effect here as well, but less severely than in the northern quadrant. Staff moved with purpose, responding to the crisis but not in panic. Most seemed unaware of its true nature, believing it to be a containment breach or technical malfunction. She made her way toward the communication center, using her researcher credentials to pass through security checkpoints. Each time, she expected to be stopped, her access revoked, but the chaos of the emergency worked in her favor. Systems were operating on automated protocols. Security personnel focused on containing the northern incident, rather than individual movement within the main facility. The interplanetary communication array was housed in the upper levels of the central tower, a restricted area, even under normal circumstances. As Aaliyah approached, she saw increased security, uniformed personnel checking credentials, scanning identifications. Direct access would be impossible, but there was another way. The array required massive power generation, and the main conduits ran through technical areas with less security. If she could access the array's systems through its power infrastructure, she might be able to transmit her evidence without reaching the communication center itself. Aaliyah diverted to a maintenance access point, using her credentials to enter the power management section. The technical staff were too busy monitoring the fluctuating power demands caused by the northern facility disruption to question her presence. She moved to an unoccupied workstation and connected her personal data device. The security on the power systems was focused on preventing sabotage, not data transmission. Aaliyah was able to establish a connection to the array's underlying control network through the power management interface. Not a direct link to the communication equipment, but access to its supporting systems. She worked quickly, packaging her evidence, cellular scans showing the nanobiostructures, documentation of accelerating integration rates, footage from the Special Projects Laboratory, genetic analyses demonstrating the transformation of human subjects. Everything compressed, encrypted, addressed to Earth Central Regulatory Authority with highest priority markers. The transmission would have to be disguised as system diagnostic data, hidden within the regular traffic between Erythra and Earth. It wouldn't be a direct broadcast, but a stealth transmission, designed to evade Xenocorp monitoring until it reached its destination. As she prepared the data package, an alert appeared on the workstation. Security override in progress. Her access being traced. Location triangulated. They had found her. Aaliyah initiated the transmission before the override completed. The data package entered the system, disguised as routine maintenance information, embedded in the constant flow of technical data between colony and homeworld. It would take time to reach Earth, hours or even days depending on communication traffic. But it was beyond her reach now, beyond Xenocorp's ability to intercept. The workstation locked, security protocols activating. Aaliyah stepped back, knowing what would come next. The door to the power management section slid open, revealing security personnel led by a grim-faced Rental. His movements were steady again, his connection to whatever remained of the Prime apparently restored. "Dr. Voss," he said, his voice cold. "You've caused considerable damage. The Prime systems are severely compromised. 17 integrated subjects lost. Years of research destabilized." "Not destroyed," Aaliyah noted. "You've re-established connection. The Prime survived." "Barely. In reduced capacity. The collective directive is fragmented." Security personnel moved to surround her, weapons drawn but not raised. They were standard security, not hybrids, still following human protocols. "What happens now?" Aaliyah asked. "Integration? To silence what I know?" Ren studied her, with those unnaturally focused eyes. "That was the original plan. Your knowledge, your adaptability, would have been valuable additions to the collective." He shook his head slightly. "But the integration process requires Prime oversight, which is currently compromised. And your resistance to mental interfacing makes you problematic. So instead, containment. Until the situation stabilizes. Until the Prime determines how best to proceed." Aaliyah smiled slightly. "Too late. I've transmitted everything, all the evidence, to Earth regulatory authorities. Even if you contain me, the truth is already in transit." Ren's expression didn't change, but she sensed his calculation, weighing possibilities, assessing damage control options. "A claim we'll investigate. Transmission logs show no outgoing communication from your authorization codes." "Not my codes, not direct transmission, but the data is beyond your reach now." Uncertainty flickered in Ren's eyes, the most human expression she'd seen from him since discovering his integration. "Take her to security containment," he ordered. "Full isolation, no communication access, continuous monitoring." As the security personnel moved to escort her, Aaliyah felt an odd sense of calm. She had done all she could. The evidence was transmitted, the Prime compromised, the integration process disrupted. Xenocorp would attempt to contain the situation, to prevent exposure. But the truth was beyond their control now. The security containment facility was deep within the central complex, a section designed for holding corporate spies and regulatory violators until formal proceedings could be arranged. Aaliyah was placed in a sparse but not uncomfortable cell, with basic amenities but no external communication capability. Days passed with little information, regular meals, occasional medical checks, but no interrogation, no integration attempts. The uncertainty was deliberate. She knew, a psychological tactic to increase anxiety, to make her doubt whether her transmission had succeeded. On the 5th day, the routine changed. Her cell door opened to reveal not the usual security personnel, but a woman in the distinctive uniform of the Interplanetary Regulatory Authority. Behind her stood armed officers bearing Earth government insignia, not Xenocorp security. "Dr. Aaliyah Voss?" the woman asked. "I'm Inspector Alara Santos, Earth Central Regulatory Authority. You're being released into our custody." Aaliyah's relief was tempered with caution. "Your credentials?" Santos produced official identification, the embedded verification codes impossible to falsify. "Your transmission was received. The evidence was compelling. Earth Central has initiated full regulatory intervention. Xenocorp operations on Erythra are under investigation. The facility is being secured as we speak. As Aaliyah was escorted through the complex, she saw evidence of the intervention. Earth Authority personnel in key positions. Xenocorp executives under supervision. Research areas being documented and secured. The atmosphere was tense but controlled. The corporate hierarchy temporarily displaced by governmental authority. The subjects, Aaliyah asked as they approached the transport bay. The ones who were integrated, what happens to them? Medical evaluation first, Santos replied. Then treatment options, where possible. The most advanced cases will be more complicated. Ethical committees are being formed to address their status. And the Prime? Contained. Its systems are isolated while we determine the extent of its influence and capabilities. The legal questions are unprecedented. Is it still human? A new entity? What rights apply? Questions without easy answers. Ethical dilemmas that would take years to resolve. But at least they would be addressed openly, not behind corporate secrecy, not driven by profit motives or evolutionary aspirations determined by the few for the many. The nanobiotechnology itself? Aaliyah asked. Under strictest containment. Research will continue under international oversight, with emphasis on reversing existing integration where possible. Santos glanced at her. Your expertise would be valuable in that effort. Dr. Voss, if you're willing. The opportunity to help those affected, to develop treatment for the unwilling subjects of Xenocorp's ambition, was one Aaliyah couldn't refuse. Of course, whatever I can contribute. As they boarded the transport vessel that would take them to the Earth Authority ship in orbit, Aaliyah caught a glimpse of Rental being escorted to another transport under heavy guard. He looked at her as they passed, his expression unreadable, integrated but not fully transformed, caught between human and hybrid, his fate as uncertain as those he had helped to change. The vessel lifted off, rising through Erythra's crimson atmosphere toward the stars beyond. Aaliyah watched the Xenocorp facility recede below them, the massive research complex now swarming with investigative teams, its secrets exposed to regulatory scrutiny. The threat hadn't ended. The nanobiotechnology existed, its potential for transformation demonstrated. The integrated subjects remained, their condition potentially irreversible, their future uncertain, and somewhere, perhaps, fragments of the Prime's directive still echoed through the systems of those partially integrated, a whisper of the collective consciousness that had nearly emerged. But humanity would face these challenges with open eyes, with ethical consideration, with respect for individual autonomy, not as a corporate-directed evolution, but as a species-wide decision about its own future. Aaliyah turned away from the viewport as the ship broke free of Erythra's atmosphere, leaving the red planet behind. Her work was just beginning, understanding the nano-bio-integration, developing reversal protocols, helping those affected, challenges that would occupy years of research, but challenges faced in the light of public scrutiny, not in corporate shadows. The human body remained a frontier of mystery, its capabilities and limitations still not fully understood. But whatever transformations awaited the species, they would be chosen, not imposed. Evolution by consensus, not by corporate directive. As the Earth Authority ship accepted their docking request, Aaliyah reviewed her notes on the nanobiostructures, already formulating research approaches for reversal therapies. The integrated subjects might never be fully restored to their previous state, but they deserved the chance to choose their own future, to reclaim whatever humanity remained within their transformed bodies. It was what made humans unique, after all, not their biological structure or their technological achievements, but their capacity for choice, their messy, unpredictable, often irrational ability to determine their own destiny. And that, no matter how advanced the technology, was worth preserving.